products. How are price increases doing? I know last month you were saying, look, there's pent-up demand, prices are going up. Has it gotten a lot worse in the last month?
Well, it has, but it came from a period of very, very tight supply and demand. So I think there's still a very good balance between supply and demand. It's a very unpredictable world now. Of course, we are sitting here in Europe where we have a war, a humanitarian crisis, and there are certain things that are cooling down the world economies, but there's still a lot of demand in the physical economy. The energy transition keeps on also increasing the demand for our products.
So where do you see the most demand? I know there's a lot of investors want to know about iron ore demand in China and how you see China developing over the next couple of quarters.
Yeah, no, look, there's no doubt that the fight against COVID in China has had an impact, very short term, on the Chinese economy. But China is very determined and seems very convinced that they will be able to meet their growth targets. And they're right now accelerating their infrastructure investments. And when they accelerate infrastructure investments, it's good for iron ore demand. So I remain cautiously optimistic.
Cautiously optimistic means not optimistic, but also not too cautious.
No, look, things are not booming, and they shouldn't be booming because it's a difficult world. It's difficult to get the supply chains to work perfectly with all the disruption we have in the world. So it's probably good that the world is not booming, but I see a decent demand.
Are we going to go back into a recession? And is it a recession that could hurt the demand for your products?
Well, we get a recession is probably beyond my capabilities to predict, but we are seeing a good demand for activities. So I don't think so. You could say that we have had a little bit of a stop here at the beginning of the year, but there are also indicators that the world economy will be growing.
Talk to me about the energy transition. And of course, we sometimes forget that a lot of things that you do is basically providing some of the rare earths, some of the pieces needed into the components to become greener and green the economy. How much more can you produce of some of these essential things that are needed for everything from like chip making to our devices?
No, thank you. You're absolutely right. And what has really been interesting here in Davos, talking to other business leaders, is how conscious business leaders are now on the importance of having security of supply on a whole raft of different commodities. We are getting more and more into critical minerals. 3 weeks ago, we opened a plant outside Salt Lake City, our Kennecott operation, where we extract from our waste stream tellurium, which you have to use for solar cells. We also, 2 weeks ago, opened a scandium plant at our Sorel site just outside Montreal, where we are extracting scandium from the waste stream. And you use scandium to lightweight aluminium, mainly for the aerospace industry. So these things, not in big tonnage, but very valuable, can actually make a huge difference.
How much more can you extract out of these rare earths? And are the prices going to be much higher than what you get from China now? So is it going to be inflationary for the world?
That's difficult to say, but the reality is these rare earths are selling at high prices. It's specialities, and we probably haven't focused too much in the West. We've just said we can buy it on the market, and now we realize we probably need to focus a little bit more on it. I'll give you one example. As I referenced our Kennecott operation outside Salt Lake City. In our waste streams, we actually have 16 out of the so-called 35 critical minerals. So it's really more about, do you have the processing skills and the will to extract it? And I think we're doing that with the new plants we are opening.
But is this a general trend of each country or each region trying to produce as much as they can? And what does that mean for China actually buying Australian iron ore? Will they start doing it more at home?
Well, I think China have just always been very good at focusing on, if they're doing a business, they're thinking also about the supply chain, the upstream supply chain. And maybe we in the West sometimes have relied too much just on the market. And what I see now is governments and big companies are much more focusing on how can we ensure that we have a very reliable supply chain, which should come as no surprise when you have as much disruptions as you have.
But at some point, does it become a problem for your iron ore business if China wants to buy less of your stuff?
So look, the good thing about doing business in China is the Chinese people think very, very long term. The business leaders think very long term. We have had a very, very long term relationship in China. We made our first joint venture with China in 1985 in Australia. And we keep on not just selling to China, but also making partnership, making joint ventures. At the moment, we are progressing discussions. We signed a framework agreement with our Chinese partners on developing the Simandou iron ore deposit in Guinea in Africa. So I actually just see a deepening of relationships into China.
Talk to me a little bit about iron ore prices. How high can they go?
Well, I mean, it's our job to try to just produce what the demand is. And it's no secret that we've been struggling a little bit the last few quarters, but we are just at the brink of bringing on stream a new iron ore mine in Western Australia, Gudai-Darri. It's the first greenfield site for more than 10 years, and that's going to help us being able to produce more. But on the other hand, right now there is probably a quite good balance. There's not too much demand, there's not too much supply.
Stockpiles are okay?
Sorry?
Stockpiles?
Yeah, I will bring on more supply now here in the second half, so I think the market is in decent balance.
What's the thing that surprised you the most in Davos?
You know, as human beings, we tend to be optimistic. It has been a little bit of a bleak background and a lot of discussions about geopolitical tensions, which of course are not very upbeat. The bright light of Davos, in my view, is that I see an enormous determination from both government officials and from business leaders towards the green transition. So we have set targets of, it's a big challenge for us, of reducing our scope 1 and 2 emissions by 50% by 2030. And you were always a bit afraid of that. Now the world is focusing on something else. But I don't feel that. I still feel it's the right thing, and I feel that people are supporting it. And what helps us is that I can see other peers, you know, our suppliers are on the decarbonization journey. Our customers are demanding it as well. So it feels like that journey, you know, has basically left the station.